on the show, but she keeps cranking out these stories, and there's a lot here to talk about. Karen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dave.
I want to move quickly. I want to start by, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, administrator raises back on the agenda tomorrow. What's happening?
The administrators are wanting very, very large raises compared to the rest of the staff. And some of these are up to 23% raises over 2.5 years. And the staff raises were kept down to about, I think, between 2 and 3%.
Let's just say 3% and be generous.
And there is an idea, this was supposed to be on the agenda almost a month ago, and John Pashon did not show up at the meeting, and in that case it would have likely been a 2-2 vote. So staff pulled it from the agenda and put it back on now.
Is this going to be on the consent agenda tomorrow?
Yes.
Remind our listeners what that means, please.
The consent agenda means that it's not discussed unless someone asks to have it pulled off the consent agenda. And what that means is that it can just go through with 22, 25 other items with no discussion. And these are very large raises for people, some of who recently had very large raises. And the idea they do is they say that we're a county that they need to have equity. And there is an ordinance that says when you're doing raises for department heads, you need to look at prevailing wages and look at what other people in their jobs are doing. But instead of doing that, they pick and choose a group of people in government, people in private sector, and different jobs, and then they say, okay, compared to these, we're making a little lower, so we need to get an equity raise, let's say 10% right now, and then over the next 3 years when they get 3%, 3%, 3%, it moves up. But another county will say, wait a minute, now they're making more than us, and then they'll get another raise. But the bigger issue is, it doesn't say all supervisors and management staff. It says department heads. And they're using this to give a ton of employees very large raises.
But again, we stress this is not line staff. These are the top mucky mucks. According to the article, the administrator raises are slated to cost the county $5,199,000 this year and nearly $10 million next year.
Yes, that is more than all the other staff raises are expected to cost the county.
All right, so it's 2-2. Who are the two on each side?
Generally, Bruce Gibson always wants to give management raises. And it's expected that Don Legg will vote with him. Debbie Arnold and Lynn Compton have repeatedly voted not to give themselves or any other management raises.
All right, so it comes down to Pashon.
And Pashon, he votes often with Bruce Gibson, so it's unclear who he will vote with.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because everybody talks about the conservative majority on the board.
They may have a conservative majority, but with the conservative majority, you can have someone that votes the other side. Frank Meacham often voted with the Democrats and not with the Republicans. So very often, Bruce Gibson and Adam Hill won the votes.
Well, and here's our favorite person back in the article, Rita Neal, County Council. How did she get that job? Oh, wait, I know how she got that job. She's up for a pay increase of 15.56%. It appears to fall short of the other department heads, but it's in addition to a 20% pay hike the SLO County Board of Supervisors voted to give Rita Neal in 2020. She currently has a compensation package of basically $375,000 a year.
Yes.
For what? Anytime there's a case, she farms it out to outside counsel, which we're going to get into after the break, but it's not like she's in court all the time.
And again, the county is saying they do not have the funds to do large races for the rest of the staff. They want to keep them to 2 to 3.5%. But when it comes to their raises and what they're making, and the difference here is you have employees that are making $30,000 a year. They're barely able to make it with the prices going up on gas and food. And then you have people making $400,000 a year.
Just give everybody a 3% raise and be done with it. Everybody, staff, Rita Neal, everybody, just 3%. Does that make too much sense? On the Stolberg text line, our listeners are already chiming in. This is just disgusting. All of us hard workers for the county get barely anything.
And that is part of the problem. Line level staff is very angry. Again, their cost of living is going up substantially. They're having trouble keeping their bills. I've talked to multiple employees that are looking for their jobs because right now, with the cost of living going up, they can't afford to work for the county. And at the same time, the higher level employees, the staff, management staff is getting the raises. And one thing that they use is they say, we can't retain people if we don't pay them these wages. You're not having trouble retaining Rita Neal or elected officials. They fight for these jobs. Who you're having trouble retaining is the people in your planning departments.
So it sounds like Pashang is going to be the swing vote. If people are concerned, as this texter has discussed it, they need to email John Pashang now.
Yes.
Before the meeting tomorrow to let them know their concerns.
Absolutely, because the meeting starts at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I would assume that at least they will pull it off the consent agenda. Arnold or Compton will want this to be discussed.
Yes. Yes, and the two of them, and I'm not positive going back more than 8 years or 10 years, but they have regularly voted not to give themselves or any other management staff raises.
All right, Karen Veely is with us from Cal Coast News. When we come back, we'll continue talking about Rita Neal and bring another name into the conversation. That name would be Don Ernst. What's the connection? We're about to explain. You're listening to Hometown Radio. It is 4:15 on the Central Coast. I'm Dave Congleton. I want to say good afternoon to everybody in the county building who is apparently listening to us. We're getting text messages here saying that radios are on the building as we speak. How lovely. Karen Veely is with us from Cal Coast News. In the first segment, we talked about the fact that at the County Board of Supervisors meeting tomorrow, they're trying to sneak this through on a consent agenda item. You don't want them to do that. You want the supervisors to pull the item off the agenda, debate it, and if they're going to vote to give these managers huge raises, they've got to put their name to it. They've got to commit to it, and especially anyone who might be running for re-election in District 2. I'm just saying. Now, what's the connection? Let's move on to the other story that Karen has posted. SLO County supervisors to discuss costly move and opioid suit. What's happening here, Karen?
Okay, the county joined an opioid suit against a pharmaceutical company that makes OxyContin. And they joined this back, I think, around 17 or 18. And the suit has now, in 19, they decided to pay quite a bit of money. I think the total amount,
$6 billion.
$6 billion and $486 million to California governments.
Yeah.
And it's determined on what's going on in your county. Rita Neal wanted Don Ernst to be the attorney on this case.
Local attorney of high repute,
Yes.
high profile.
High profile, very involved in politics.
The godfather of Democratic politics.
Yes.
You do not run for office as a Democrat without Don Ernst's blessing.
And he has almost handpicked most of the judges in this county.
Yep.
People run because Don Ernst gives them the nod. So when he was given the contract, the issue is it's because of the type of contract it is. Dan Dow believes that this contract belongs...
Dan Dow, the district attorney.
The district attorney. There's two issues here. First of all, you should not do contingency contracts in cases like this. It's considered unethical, according to the District Attorneys Association, which Dan Dow is he is the chair of the California District Attorneys Association Consumer Protection Committee. And there's another thing. There's also a state law that says that the district attorney is supposed to have the first crack at doing these type of cases, and that she should have gone to him. But the bigger issue is the money that's coming in this case is supposed to go to people with addiction problems because of OxyContin, people that have those type opioid issues. If they give a contingency to Don Ernst, money that could be going to victims will be going instead to Don Ernst.
Let me just read the lead of your article, Karen, because I think that might help people understand. This is what you write. San Luis Obispo County Council Rita Neal told the Board of Supervisors last year that they needed to hire a local attorney to represent the county's interest in a national class action suit against Purdue Pharma over the opioid epidemic. She recommended local attorney Don Ernst, a man who has close ties to Neal. The Board of Supervisors agreed to a contingency fee agreement with Ernst, even though the case had reached its settlement stage long before Neal recommended him. Ernst could now stand to collect a substantial amount of money from a $6 billion national settlement reached by 23 states and more than 2,000 local governments. Neal made a recommendation, despite a vote by the Board of Supervisors some years earlier, to have the District Attorney's Office upgrade its Consumer Protection Department. Dan Dow was allowed to hire an attorney and investigator who was to be funded by the lawsuit revenues. So why was Rita Neal able to make this decision?
Well, that's the thing. And the timing on this might be wrong. Lynn Compton thought it was last year, but I am hearing it may have been years earlier than that. But regardless, according to Dan Dow, these type of consumer protection cases are supposed to go through his office, and it is not considered ethical to put these type of cases in a contingency basis.
So, again, for the layperson like myself, this court case should have been handled not by Rita Neal and Don Ernst, but by the district attorney.
Yes, and that if the district attorney's office did it, they would have been paid for their time, not contingency, and the money then would have gone to the victims, the families, the addicts. It would not be going to a private attorney who's a close friend of county council.
Dan Dow is also claiming in your article, I'm quoting here, the recommendation of Ernst also appears to violate California's Business and Professions Code 17204, which requires the district attorney's office have first crack at representing the county in the suit. This is what Dan Dow said.
Yes.
Is he right? Based upon your research?
Based upon my research, he is right. I'm hearing that Rita Neal is now claiming it's not that type of suit, but I'm also hearing from other attorneys that it actually says in the suit it's that type of suit. So I think it's going to take some time to iron this out, because there are two high-level attorneys in this county that have separate views on this issue.
Now, we tied into tomorrow because the Board of Supervisors, after they honor John Lindsay and vote pay raises for the fat cats, the Board of Supervisors is scheduled to discuss whether Ernst or the District Attorney's Office should represent the county in the case during closed session.
Yes, and that means that the public will not be able to listen to the arguments on this and have an idea of what is being said. But this was brought to the forefront months, well before the election was lost, by Lynn Compton, because of something Don Ernst allegedly said to her during a lunch.
Well, let's tell this story, please. What is the relationship between Don Ernst and Supervisor Lynn Compton?
Don Ernst asked Lynn, he's involved in different things with the county. He asked Lynn to meet him and talk to him about several things.
A lunch.
I think it was a lunch.
Okay.
And during this, he basically told Lynn, Rita Neal's family. And Lynn had not wanted to renew her contract recently because of issues in the county. And at that time, not recently, probably 8 months ago, or maybe even a year ago. And at that time, Don Ernst had told her, if you don't agree that you're, according to Lynn, if you do not agree that you're not going to want to ever get rid of her again, he wanted her to agree that she would never do that again, or he would go after Lynn Compton by giving a lot of money to Jimmy Paulding.
Did he give money to Paulding?
There was a what do you call it, a fundraiser that him and his wife were involved in, and then there was also money given to a PAC that was, the only reason for it was to get Jimmy Paulding in office, that was funded heavily by his wife and by his business partner.
But nothing illegal.
It's not illegal.
Yeah, okay. Well, I want to be fair here. What Don Ernst did is not illegal.
No.
All right. So he's friends with Rita Neal. He was trying to get Supervisor Compton to back off and protect his friend Rita Neal. And when Lynn Compton wouldn't do it, he funded her opponent as much as he possibly could. Am I understanding the story correctly?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's interesting then, again as a layperson, Karen, I defer to you, is why Rita Neal is able to make a selection of someone who is clearly her friend, why she didn't recuse herself and let someone else decide who would get a contract that could be worth millions of dollars to them.
Well, the other thing is,
Am I missing something
should
there?
this have been put out to bid? Generally, when you have something worth this much money, they're required to put it out to bid and let people apply for the job. And in this case, I have been told it did not go out to bid. So again, the question is, should this have gone out to bid so other attorneys could have applied for it?
So what are the options tomorrow in this closed meeting? What is it that the Board of Supervisors might decide that they could do?
I think that they are going to discuss whether Don Ernst should remain on this case. And I don't know if they will also discuss putting Dan Dow in because his office should be handling the case. But again, Rita Neal believes it's not Dan Dow's office that should be handling the case.
I'm just processing all this. And I'm trying to figure out the chain of command within the county. Who does Dan Dow report to?
Dan Dow is an elected official.
I guess he reports to the voters.
He reports to the voters,
So
yes.
he doesn't report to Rita Neal. He doesn't report to the Board of Supervisors. He doesn't report to Wade, the head of the county.
And there's a very good reason that district attorneys are elected and not appointed. It's because you do not want a district attorney who is kowtowing to a county administrator, county council, or the Board of Supervisor. You want it to be black and white and to follow the law.
Do you have any idea how far in Don Ernst is on this case? I mean, has he done a lot of work? We know about the passage of time. I'm just trying to figure out if it could be argued, well, look at all the work he's already done on this.
I think, I'm not sure. I am going to ask for records. I think it's going to be hard to get, but I'm going to ask for the contract. I'm going to ask for also any putting it out to bid that they did, and I'm going to ask for his work because attorneys are supposed to give statements on a regular basis. I want the statements of what work he has put into this issue. The national firm that did this case is the primary attorney on the case,
Meaning?
not Don Ernst.
Okay.
They did the work. They put the case together. They secured the money. They did the primary work on this
Wait a minute.
case.
And do we know, I know you're not an attorney, Karen, but why is Ernst getting so much money?
Well, and I'm not sure exactly how much he's slated to get, but if it's done on a contingency, you get 1% of the take.
Exactly. Why would he be getting that much as opposed to just a flat fee from the county?
And again, if they had worked with Dan Dow, they would be keeping the money in the county and to the victims rather than to a private attorney.
So why are we emailing John Pashang tomorrow about the pay raises that they're trying to sneak through on the consent agenda? You could email all 5 supervisors and say, by the way, can't we give this case to Dan Dow, our elected district attorney, who just got reelected without anybody running against him? What am I missing here, Karen?
And again, it's this money could really help a lot of people in our community at this time.
Yeah.
The opioid crisis, the amount of people that die, the amount of people with addiction, this could be huge for those people.
Don's got plenty of money. Let's go to California Headline News and ABC Radio News, find out what's happening around the world. We don't make this stuff up. We're back with Karen.